Until her final breath, Part 2. Chapter 11, The Night That Wasn't His. The storm rolled in just before midnight. Not thunder, not lightning, something older. A silence so profound it made the walls groan. The manor creaked as if it, too, remembered something it wished to forget. Myraelin stood before the mirror. Her reflection was clear now. Whole. The other 12 versions of herself had faded back into memory. But she could still feel them. Behind her. Inside her. Weaving their voices into her thoughts like threads of a spell just beginning to cast. "You're almost there," one had whispered. "Not all memories are gifts," said another. But tonight, no whispers came. Only silence. The moment shattered when her candle blew out, though there was no wind. Myraelin turned. And standing in her doorway, was Rhysand. Or so she thought. Until he stepped forward. The light from the hallway hit his face, too pale. His eyes, wrong. Not crimson. Colorless. Empty as a corpse. "Rhysand," she whispered. He said nothing. He didn't need to. Because in her chest, the pendant screamed. Myraelin staggered back. "You're not him," she said. The not Rhysand smiled. And it was his smile, but hollow, stretched too wide. Like a painting warped by water. "He never told you, did he?" the doppelganger whispered. "About the first betrayal." "I know who you are," Myraelin said, voice trembling. "You're a memory. A trick." "I am truth," the thing said. "The piece he won't let you see. The night that fractured your soul before the curse ever began. There is no such night." "Oh, but there is," it purred. "Would you like to remember it?" Before she could answer, the room dissolved. The manor fell away. The floor turned to stone. The air thickened into fire-lit smoke. And Myraelin was no longer Myraelin. She was Kasara. The sixth life. The one she had never seen. Kasara stood on the edge of a cliff, overlooking a sea whipped into storm. Her gown was torn. Her lip was bleeding. And beside her stood Rhysand, not like the man she knew now, but younger. Harsher. Dressed in crimson, yes, but his eyes were darker. Wounded. Angry. "You lied to me," she cried. "To protect you," he shouted back. "You weren't ready. You took my choice," she screamed. "You turned me without asking. You fed on me. Because you were dying." Rhysand snapped. "I didn't have time to explain. You made me like you. You made me monster." Kasara shoved him. He didn't stop her. "I trusted you," she whispered. "And you ruined me." Lightning cracked. She stepped back toward the cliff's edge. And Rhysand. Let her go. The vision snapped like a neck. Myraelin gasped, falling to her knees, her lungs burning with salt and sorrow. The figure before her still wore Rhysand's face. "Now you see," it whispered. "He's not your salvation. He's your undoing. And he always has been." "No," Myraelin said, voice shaking. "That wasn't him. That was who he was. Not who he is now." "And what makes you so sure?" the thing asked, tilting its head. "Because he tells you what you want to hear? Because he gives you a ring and calls it love?" Myraelin rose slowly, her fists clenched. "Because I remember. Not just pain. But healing. Not just fire. But the hand that pulled me from it. A hand that let you fall. A hand that caught me after," she said. "And carried me through 12 deaths. And still," the figure said, voice now softer, more intimate, "you will die again. Myraelin lifted her chin. Not this time. The figure smiled. The illusion crumbled. And in its place, Velmora's voice curled into the air. We shall see, little flame. The next morning, Myraelin woke with her cheek pressed to cold wood. She was in the library. The Book of Vows was open beside her. And scribbled in the margin, in a hand not her own, was a line she did not remember writing. Even love can break you if wielded without truth. Later that day, she found Rhysand in the Rose Chapel again, tending to a thorn-covered altar that only bled when he touched it. She watched him in silence. His face was tired. Lined by grief. Not immortal in that moment, but utterly, painfully human. Why didn't you tell me about Kasara? She asked. He looked up slowly. Because it was my greatest shame, he said. You let her fall. Yes. You turned her without her consent. I did, he whispered. Why? He swallowed. Because I loved her so much, I thought losing her would kill me. And in trying to save her, I damned her instead. And now? Now I wait for you to remember it, and choose me anyway. Myraelin stepped forward. She touched his face. His skin was cold. His eyes, crimson, but no longer glowing. Just, open. Raw. I remember, she said. And, he asked. And I still choose you. He closed his eyes. A tear slid down his cheek. And when he opened them again, the light had returned. Not just the vampire. But the man. The one who had failed. Fallen. Loved. And never stopped trying. That night, in the forest behind the chapel, a tree split open down the center. Inside it was a body. Wrapped in vines. Wearing a crown. Eyes open. And waiting. The 13th flame burns, Velmora whispered. But every fire casts a shadow. Chapter 12, The Deathless Hourglass. The moon was sharp that night. Not soft and silver, but thin and bright like the edge of a blade, cutting through the clouds with merciless clarity. Its light spilled through the chapel's rose-shaped window and landed at Myraelin's feet like a spotlight on a stage she hadn't meant to step onto. She stood alone at the altar of thorns. Behind her, the chapel was still. No wind. No flame. Just the scent of old incense and stone-soaked sorrow. Her fingertips grazed the vines that bled when Rhysand touched them, but they did not bleed for her. They pulsed. Alive. And waiting. She closed her eyes and breathed in deep. Then she spoke, not aloud, but into the silence between lifetimes. I'm ready. The vines recoiled. The altar split down the center with a low, aching groan, and something emerged from within. Not with speed, but with purpose. Like it had waited centuries for her hands. An hourglass. Small. Elegant. Carved from obsidian and glass with veins of silver threading its frame. But inside. The sand was not sand. It was ash. Dark, fine, and weightless as breath. It moved not with gravity, but with intention. Every grain fell upward, not down, drifting like smoke to the top as if the hourglass defied time itself. And carved into the base in runes she no longer needed to read were the words. When the final grain falls, so shall her final breath. Myraelin's hands trembled as she held it. It's real, came Rhysand's voice from behind her. She turned. He stood at the edge of the chapel steps, his expression unreadable. What is this? She asked. It feels like, it knows me. Because it does, he said. It's bound to your soul. Why is the sand falling upward? Because the curse isn't counting down to your death, he said softly. It's counting back from your first life. From the day the curse began. She stared at the hourglass in her hands. The grains shifted, slow, deliberate. There weren't many left. How many grains remain? She whispered. Rhysand looked away. Enough, he said. If we move quickly. Don't lie. A pause. 6, he said at last. Maybe 7. Each grain marks a chain yet to unlock. And when the last one rises? Velmora takes you. Forever? No, he said. Not forever. Just long enough that the world forgets your name. Long enough that love loses all memory of you. She clutched the hourglass tighter. The ash within pulsed faintly. A memory stirred, one not yet seen, but felt. Another life. Another vow. A whisper at the edge of her hearing. Don't let go this time. Hold until it hurts. Where is it? Myraelin asked suddenly, lifting her head. Rhysand tilted his head. Where is what? The next chain. The next memory. I can feel it, close, sharp, and buried. Are you sure you're strong enough? He asked gently. I've survived fire, betrayal, poison, and sacrifice, she said. What's left? He stepped forward, eyes locked on hers. The child. The world stilled. What? Your fourth life, Rhysand said. You were born to a coven of bone witches. They tried to erase your soul. Rewrite your blood. You were gifted, too gifted. Even as a child, you could recall glimpses of your past lives. So they cut those pieces out of you. Over and over. Myraelin's breath left her. You remember her name? She asked. Ashaera. The name fell like a prayer with broken wings. She died at 13, Rhysand said. She tried to escape the circle that bound her, but Velmora used her own magic against her. And how did she die? Rhysand hesitated. She took the blade herself. Better to die free than live hollow. Myraelin nodded slowly. The hourglass in her hands pulsed again. The ash swirled faster. A single grain drifted upward. One chain closer. One life nearer to the edge. That night, she dreamed of a girl in white robes, standing in a circle of salt and bone. Her hands were raw. Her voice was gone. But in her eyes burned defiance. And when Myraelin reached for her, Ashaera smiled. Not all children are helpless. Some are warriors before they know the word. She placed a bone dagger in Myraelin's hand. And said. You're not broken. You're forged. Myraelin woke with the hourglass beside her. A single line of ash hovered near the top. And in the silence, she whispered. I remember. Far beneath, in Velmora's court of glass and blood, the mirror cracked. A line split across Myraelin's reflection, just above the heart. Velmora hissed. She remembers the child, she muttered. A second mirror flared to life beside the first. This one showed a ring of salt. And a name written in blood. Ashaera. Velmora waved her hand. The image blurred. And when it cleared, a figure stood in the circle again. Alive. Smiling. Waiting. Let's see what happens, Velmora whispered, when the child doesn't stay dead. Chapter 13, Run, Bleed, Burn. The woods were wrong. Not in any visible way, the trees still reached up like blackened fingers, the sky still hung above them in silent gray, but something in the air had shifted. The wind no longer rustled the leaves. The snow no longer crunched beneath Myraelin's boots. It was too still. Like the world was holding its breath. Like it was watching. Rhysand walked ahead of her, leading her deeper into the forest's heart. His expression was unreadable, his eyes flicking now and then toward the horizon as if searching for something he feared to find. "You're quiet," Myraelin said, her voice low. "This place was cursed before even Velmora touched it," he said. "The Bone Witches built their circles here long before you were born into Ashaera. Magic doesn't just die, it burrows. And we're walking into it." "Yes. Good." Rhysand gave her a look, half surprise, half admiration. "You're changing," he said. "I'm remembering," she corrected. "They made me a victim. But Ashaera didn't die as one. She chose. I need to see it." They crossed a line of moss-covered stones, each carved with a spiral symbol. As they stepped over the last, the world changed. Light dimmed. Color drained. And Myraelin felt her breath catch in her throat. She had been here before. The circle. It was just as Rhysand had said, etched into the earth in salt and powdered bone, marked by black candles that had never gone out. Inside it, she saw herself, Ashaera. A child in a thin linen dress, standing barefoot on frozen ground, arms covered in scars. Not wounds. Rituals. She was small. Still. But her eyes burned with memory far older than her years. In her hand, she held the same bone dagger Myraelin had seen in her dream. "She's waiting," Myraelin said. Rhysand didn't answer. Because he wasn't there anymore. She turned. He was gone. And the forest had vanished with him. The sky was now black glass. The trees bent inward, their branches dripping blood. The salt circle glowed bright crimson. And in the shadows beyond the candlelight, Velmora stepped into view. "Did you think I would let you relive it so easily?" the witch asked, her voice like silk stretched over a blade. "No, little soul. You've come too far. So let me give you a gift." Myraelin stepped into the circle. "You don't scare me anymore." "Then I'm not trying hard enough," Velmora whispered. She raised her hand, and the child, Ashaera, turned. But her face was wrong. It was Myraelin's face. Not younger. Just her. Split down the center. One half smiling. The other burned black, her eye nothing but smoke. "No," Myraelin breathed. "That's not real." "It's close enough," Velmora purred. "You've seen 12 lives of love and loss. But what about the life that hates? What about the version of you that wanted revenge?" The doppelganger raised the bone dagger. "I remember you," it hissed. "I remember screaming your name in the dark. I remember begging for mercy. And you, let them cut me open for power." "No," Myraelin said, backing away. "That's not true. You wanted to forget me," the shadow screamed. "You let me die." The forest howled. Velmora vanished. The candles went out one by one. And Myraelin stood face to face with her own worst truth. She had feared Ashaera. She had buried that life. She had run from her. And now, she couldn't. The doppelganger rushed her. Myraelin didn't flinch. She stepped forward. And embraced her. The blade slid between her ribs, but she held tighter. "You are me," Myraelin whispered. "You are me. But you were never forgotten. I've carried you. In every fire. Every scream. You are the reason I survived." The doppelganger stilled. And then, faded. The pain remained. But the hate was gone. The candles relit. The sky turned from black to violet. The blood on the trees crystallized into snow. And the child, Ashaera, appeared again, whole. Real. Silent. She approached. Placed the bone dagger into Myraelin's hand. And bowed. One more chain unlocked. One more grain of ash. The hourglass pulsed in her chest. And Rhysand reappeared, sprinting toward her, his face twisted in panic. You were gone, he said. The forest closed. I couldn't get in. Myraelin turned to him, her breath still heavy, her body bleeding. But her voice? Steady. She tried to make me afraid of myself, she said. It didn't work. He stared at her. And for the first time, he looked uncertain. What did she show you? He asked. Myraelin raised the dagger. Me, she said. The part one never forgave. But now I remember. And I forgive her. You forgave yourself, Rhysand whispered. Yes, she said. And that's what she never expected. Far below, in Velmora's crimson sanctuary, the 13th mirror cracked, not from a blow, but from within. The reflection inside smiled. Velmora hissed and slammed her hand into the glass. She's waking up too fast, she growled. Then kill her, said a voice from the shadows. I can't, Velmora said. Not yet. The chain isn't complete. Then what? She turned. And smiled like a wolf. Then we break him instead. Chapter 14, The Memory That Fights Back. The storm didn't come from the sky. It came from inside. Rhysand collapsed at the edge of the salt circle. One moment he was guiding Myraelin through the trees, his voice steady, his steps sure, and the next, he was on his knees, gripping his temples, eyes wide with pain. Rhysand? Myraelin dropped beside him. What's happening? She's in my head, he gasped. She's never done this before. Velmora? He nodded, fingers trembling, blood trickling from his nose. She's not just attacking your chain, he said. She's twisting mine. Myraelin pressed her hand to his back, willing him to breathe, to ground, but the moment she touched him, a memory not her own surged into her mind. She was not herself. She was Rhysand. The ninth life. He stood in a crumbling cathedral at dusk, the sky red behind shattered stained glass. In front of him, Myraelin knelt, another version of her, this one cloaked in battle robes, her hair braided with bone charms. She was dying. Blood seeped from a wound in her stomach. Her lips were pale. Her breath short. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't say it, he said. Don't you dare. I'm tired, Rhys. No. No. Stay with me. Stay. Let me go. But he didn't. He refused to let her die. So he did the one thing he swore he never would. He bound her to him. Blood to blood. Soul to soul. Not to save her, but to possess her. And she screamed as the spell took hold. The vision shattered. Myraelin reeled back from Rhysand, gasping, her chest heaving. You bound me, she whispered. You forced a bond. He looked at her, eyes wide, not with guilt, but terror. No, he choked. That's not what happened. I saw it. Then she's showing you her version, he said. She's twisting it. That was the moment I tried to unbind you, to release you from the dying bond. You asked me to. I saw pain, Myraelin said. I saw me in pain. I know, Rhysand said, tears in his voice. Because it was a curse. One of Velmora's traps. She made it look like I was stealing your soul, but I was saving what was left of you. You begged me. Did I? She asked, quietly. Rhysand flinched. And for a terrible moment, the silence between them was wider than death. The forest pulsed once, deep, like a heartbeat underground. And then the air shifted. The world grew thin. And from the shadows stepped Velmora. She wore no cloak. No crown. No glamour. Only a dress the color of bruises and a smile sharpened by centuries. "He's lied to you more than once, little flame," she purred. "And still you clutch his hand like it won't burn you." "Stay away from him," Myraelin said, rising. Velmora ignored her. "How many lifetimes do you need before you realize the truth?" she asked. "He doesn't love you. He needs you. You are his curse, not his salvation." "You're trying to break our bond," Myraelin said. "No, child. I'm trying to set you free." She turned to Rhysand. "You're unraveling, aren't you, Crimson Lord? I've found the tear in your soul. I can pull the thread if you'd like. Show her what you really are." Rhysand tried to rise, but the vines at the base of the trees lashed around his wrists, pinning him. "Rhysand." Myraelin lunged forward, but the salt circle lit up, a warding spell, and flung her back. Velmora stepped inside it. "Do you want to know what he did in the first life?" she whispered to Myraelin. "Before I cursed him? Do you want to know why I chose him?" "No," Myraelin growled. "I want you gone." Velmora smiled sweetly. "Then I'll show you everything." She reached out. Her fingers touched Rhysand's forehead. And the world exploded. Not in flame, but in memory. Myraelin was every version of herself at once. Falling. Burning. Bleeding. Drowning. And at the center of it all, Rhysand, kneeling before a black altar, begging the gods for a second chance. Offering his own soul to bring her back. Every time. Not once. Not twice. Every time. And they told him no. So he found another way. He built the bond. He rewrote fate. He defied the gods. And in doing so, he called Velmora's attention. Not because of pride. Not because of greed. Because of love. A love so deep it broke the world. The vision ended in a roar. Velmora was gone. The salt circle dimmed. Rhysand collapsed into Myraelin's arms. He was unconscious. But alive. She held him, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I believe you," she whispered. "I remember now." She turned to the trees. "And I remember you, Velmora." The trees answered with silence. But the hourglass at her hip pulsed. And a fifth grain of ash floated upward. "You can lie to me," Myraelin whispered. "But not to her. Not to the flame inside me. We're coming for you." Far below, Velmora stood before her mirror. It had cracked entirely now. And in its place bloomed a new reflection. Myraelin in white. Crowned in fire. Eyes burning. Velmora stared at her. And, for the first time in 13 lifetimes, she felt fear. Chapter 15, The Fire Between Us. Rhysand didn't wake for 3 hours. Myraelin stayed with him the whole time. She wrapped him in her cloak, knelt beside him on the frozen earth, and held his hand like a lifeline, though neither of them knew who was saving whom anymore. The snow had started again. Soft, slow, and silent. But it didn't settle on him. Not a single flake. The snow refused to touch him. As though even winter recognized the man who had once begged the gods to break their laws. When his eyes finally opened, they weren't crimson. They were gray. Clear. Mortal. And Myraelin's heart clenched. "Rhysand," she whispered. He looked at her. Blank. Then, startled. Then. Myraelin, he breathed. It's you. She pulled him to her, burying her face against his neck. You nearly died, she said, voice tight. She tried to rip your soul apart. She almost did, he murmured. But you pulled me back. You remember? He nodded slowly. All of it. The altar. The gods. The first life. A pause. Then, softer. Do you hate me? Why would I? Because I broke the world for you. She pulled back, held his face between her hands. You didn't break the world, she said. You loved me. And that love cracked the shell Velmora used to bind it. You didn't curse me. You gave me a choice. But I took it from you. Then give it back now. He blinked. And she placed his hand on her chest, just above the hourglass now embedded beneath her skin, glowing faintly with 6 rising grains of ash. I'm choosing you. In this life. Fully. Without fear. A long silence passed between them. Then Rhysand leaned in, not to kiss her, but to rest his forehead against hers. Their breath mingled in the cold. And in that space between them, something ancient shifted. The hourglass pulsed, not from within her, but around them. The air glowed faintly gold. And then. The bond awakened. Not forced. Not cursed. Not stolen. Chosen. A golden thread, thin as breath, wrapped between their fingers, her ring, his blood mark, and the vow she'd made just days ago. It glimmered once. And vanished. But they felt it now. Not a chain. Not a leash. A tether. Strong. Willing. Balanced. You're stronger than you've ever been, Rhysand whispered. This version of you, she could undo everything. Undo Velmora, she asked. Undo me, he said. If you wanted. I don't want that. Then what do you want? To finish this. To wake the rest of me. And end her reign. And what if it kills us both? Myraelin stared at him, quiet fire in her eyes. Then let us burn together. But not as victims. They rose, hand in hand. And the forest parted for them. The snow hissed where they stepped. And from above, a raven cried once, not in warning, but in salute. At the edge of the ruins, Rhysand stopped. He reached into his coat and withdrew a rolled parchment, old and sealed with wax. The crest stamped into it showed a heart pierced by flame. What is this? Myraelin asked. A map, Rhysand said. To the lost cathedral where your 6th life fell. I thought I'd already remembered the 6th. You've remembered pain, he said. Not truth. What's the difference? One wounds, he said. The other binds. And what binds me next? He looked at her. And for once, no sadness clouded his eyes. Only certainty. Your power. That night, Myraelin dreamed of fire. But this time, it didn't burn her. It followed her. Wrapped around her like a crown. And from the ashes, a voice whispered. We were never meant to be saved. We were meant to rise. Far away, Velmora stood in her chamber of mirrors, now blackened, shattered, silent. She turned to the last one, the only one still whole. It no longer showed Myraelin. It showed the cathedral. And above it, drawn in flame across the sky, the symbol of the old bond. A heart pierced by flame. Velmora touched it and hissed as her skin smoked. She's too close, she muttered. Then what now? Said the voice in the shadows. Velmora turned. Smiled. Now we burn her life next. Which one? The one she loved most. Chapter 16, The Crimson Cathedral. The map led them west. Past the Valley of White Thorns. Beyond the stream that ran with frost, not water. Through the hills where no bird had sung in centuries. And finally, into the hollow where silence bloomed like a bruise in the earth. The cathedral was not built above ground. It was carved into it. Stone arches rose from beneath the roots of an ancient grove, half buried by time, the entrance shaped like a yawning mouth, elegant, grand, and undeniably grave-like. Myraelin stood at the threshold. The pendant at her throat had gone still. The ring on her hand, silent. Even the hourglass had ceased its pulse. "This place," she said, voice soft. "You remember it," Rhysand replied. She nodded slowly. "I used to come here in secret. Before I ever met you. I read poetry by the broken stained glass. I left pressed flowers between the hymnals. This was Myrae's place," he said. "My sixth life. The one that loved me without knowing what I was." She turned to him. "You didn't hide it well." He smiled. "I didn't try." They stepped inside together. The cathedral's interior was still intact, but no longer sacred. Where an altar once stood, vines had overtaken the stone. Candles, long since melted into wax rivers, sat unlit on blackened stands. And from the vaulted ceiling, strands of spider silk fluttered like forgotten prayers. But the memories were still here. Waiting. As Myraelin stepped forward, something shifted. Not a sound. Not a tremor. Just warmth. A single petal floated down from above, lavender. And then another. And another. Until the entire nave shimmered with falling petals. And then Myrae appeared. She stood at the front of the cathedral, not as a ghost or vision, but real. Luminous. Hair coiled in ribbons. A notebook in her hand. Bare feet on the marble floor. She looked up. And she smiled. "You came back," she whispered. "I remember you," Myraelin said. "Good," Myrae replied. "Because you're not supposed to." Rhysand reached for Myraelin's hand. But it passed through her. His mouth parted. Shocked. Myraelin looked down, her own fingers had begun to glow faintly, as if her body were turning into light. "She's inside it," Rhysand whispered. "The memory's taken her." "No," Myraelin said. "She's trying to hold me here." Myrae's voice echoed. "Why leave?" she said. "You were happy here. You had peace. You didn't remember blood or fire or chains. Just pages. Kisses. Quiet." The cathedral shimmered. And changed. Suddenly it was whole again. Sunlight streamed through stained glass, casting rainbows across the floor. The pews were filled with books and flowers. The wind smelled of lilac and parchment. And there, at the altar, sat Rhysand. Not the one she knew. But the one Myrae loved. Gentle. Mortal. Smiling without sorrow. Reading her poetry aloud. "You wanted this once," Myrae said, stepping closer. "A life without battle. Without blood. Just love." "I still want that," Myraelin whispered. "Then stay," she said. "Stay with me. Stay with you." Before everything shattered. Myraelin faltered. The air was warm. Safe. Sweet. She saw herself, this version of herself, take Rhysand's hand, sit beside him, and read aloud the vow she had once written. "I do not need forever. I only need this moment." Again. And again. Until the breath leaves me. Her knees weakened. Rhysand, she said. I can't. This isn't real, came his voice, his real voice, distant, strained, as if carried on a wind from another world. You're in the memory. Wake up. Please. Wake up. But she turned to the false version beside her. You would have stayed with me, wouldn't you? She asked. The dream Rhysand smiled. Nodded. Always. Then came the voice that wasn't hers. That's because he's not real. The air fractured. And Velmora stepped from between the pillars of the cathedral. But this time, she wasn't mocking. She wasn't cruel. She looked tired. Her voice wasn't a taunt. It was gentle. You don't have to keep choosing pain, Velmora said. Stay here. Stay with her. With him. Let the other lives fall away. Let the hourglass still. Be the girl who wrote poems again. Be the one who never died. Myraelin wanted it. So badly. For the first time, the temptation was greater than the fear. But then she saw it. On the false Rhysand's wrist, no ring. In his eyes, no memory. On her own hand, no hourglass. You'd give me love, Myraelin said. But only if I forget everything that made it real. Velmora blinked. What's so sacred about suffering, Myraelin? Why keep chasing ghosts? You can have him, here. This version. This piece. But not me, Myraelin whispered. She turned away from the vision. Back toward the shattered cathedral. The real one. Where Rhysand waited in the cold. I don't want peace without pain, she said. Because without pain, love isn't earned. The false world crumbled. The petals turned to ash. The sunlight bled into shadow. And the Myrae who had tempted her whispered one last line. Then let the flame remember the ink. And vanished. Myraelin awoke in Rhysand's arms, gasping. Her hand clenched tight around something soft. She opened it. Myrae's notebook. Real. Bound in worn blue leather. A pressed lavender inside its cover. Rhysand stared at it, stunned. That's not from your memory, he said. That's from the dream. No, Myraelin said, voice steady. A sixth grain floated upward. And a soft gold shimmer spread across her wrist. A sigil. A quill wrapped in flame. Far away, in her crumbling sanctuary, Velmora screamed. And the flames around her throne flickered blue. She resists joy, Velmora hissed. Not just pain. Then what will you do? The voice in the dark asked. Velmora bared her teeth. I'll give her neither. Next. I give her emptiness.
Every story has an ending. But some mysteries live on. If you enjoyed this tale, don't let it fade into the shadows. Smash that like button and subscribe for more thrilling stories that will transport you beyond the veil of the ordinary. Subscribe to our channel and your name will appear at the beginning of our next video, where we will pleasantly thank you for your subscribing. Tap the bell icon so you never miss a journey into the unknown. Share your thoughts in the comments. What twists did you see coming? And what secrets do you think still remain? Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and let the next story begin.